You begin by slowing down. The outer world, full of sound, weight, and form, starts to fade. With each breath, your awareness turns inward, not toward thoughts, but toward something deeper, toward the body that holds you, toward the quiet, machinery that moves without asking for attention. Your fingers rest, your chest rises. Your mind, still and soft, begins to drift, not outward, but down. Down through skin and sinew, into the currents that hum just beneath awareness. You sink gently into the fabric of yourself, past muscle, past blood, past the warmth of living tissue. You enter the realm of the invisible, where the body dissolves into a field of tiny, ceaseless motion. Here, in this microscopic hush, you meet the atom, but it doesn't feel like meeting a thing, not quite. It feels more like listening to a silence that is somehow alive, a silence made of probabilities, pulses, and sudden shifts. You have been told that atoms are the building blocks of everything, little marbles spinning inside you, but they are not solid, not really. If you could touch one, your finger would pass mostly through empty space. The atom is more cloud than stone, and yet, from this cloud, all form is born. You drift closer. An atom, for all its vast emptiness, holds a dense center, the nucleus. Protons and neutrons huddle there, like campfires burning quietly in the center of a great night. Around them, electrons do not orbit like planets. They do not spin in predictable circles. Instead, they blur and pulse, spread like ink in water, disappearing and returning in ways your mind cannot fully grasp. You begin to see, not with eyes, but with a deeper sense, that the atom is not a place of things, but of chances. An electron may be here, or there, or neither, or both, and this is not a flaw in the image. It is the truth of it. The particle is a possibility, not a presence. This is your first step into quantum space, a realm where certainty fades and the world becomes a dance of maybes. You let go of the need to grasp. You let go of the need to locate. You watch as the electron's wear becomes a blur of likelihood. Not a point, but a cloud. A cloud that hums with a quiet energy, soft as breath. Your mind wants to ask, how can something be nowhere and yet be real? But here, in this deep inner stillness, you begin to sense that reality is not just what you can point to. It is also what can only be described in probabilities. An electron's position, its motion. These things cannot be pinned down at once. When you look for its place, you lose its speed. When you measure its speed, you lose its place. This isn't an error. In your tools, it is the nature of the world at this scale. Heisenberg's uncertainty is not a limitation. It is a description of what is. The more closely you examine, the more gently you must hold your definitions. And so you float, not with direction, but with openness. Each electron becomes a whisper in a room full of echoes. The more you try to capture its voice, the more it slips into silence. The atom is not silent, though it vibrates, it pulses. It holds energy not as motion alone, but as potential, like a string pulled taut, waiting for the smallest tug to sing. You listen to that vibration. It is the music of quantum fields. Each particle is not simply a speck, but a ripple in an invisible ocean. Electrons, photons, quarks, they are not little beads moving in space, but waves rising out of deeper seas. And these seas are everywhere. They run through you, through your bed, through the sky above, the same fields that ripple into light, and matter ripple inside your cells. You too are made of fields and flickers, and though you may seem solid, you are mostly space. The distance between the nucleus of an atom and its cloud of electrons is vast compared to their size. If an atom were the size of a stadium, the nucleus would be a marble at its center, and the electrons would shimmer at the edge of the stands. The rest is emptiness, or what appears as emptiness. But this emptiness is not dead. It is alive with possibility. Virtual particles wink in and out of being. Energy fluctuates. Even the vacuum is not truly empty, but a restless foam of becoming and unbecoming. And in this invisible motion, everything finds its form. You feel awe, not the kind that overwhelms, but the kind that gently humbles. The kind that says, you do not have to understand it all to be a part of it. You are not separate from this quantum field. You are it, shaped into thought and breath and skin. Every moment, the particles within you flicker into positions, tunnel through spaces they should not pass, and hum with energies borrowed and returned. And they do all this not with purpose, but with pattern. A strange, soft logic governs them, a logic that is not like yours, not fixed or certain, but woven of chance and change. And yet, from this dance of uncertain particles emerges the chair beneath you, the warmth in your hands, the rhythm of your breathing. It is a paradox, but not a frightening one. It is like a dream that builds a world while you sleep. Using nothing but flickers and fog, you settle into that dream now. Let the strangeness become familiar. Let the questions remain soft. You do not need to solve the quantum world. You only need to drift through it and listen. Listen to how it murmurs beneath your thoughts, how it shapes your heartbeat, even as it defies your grasp, how it makes you not in spite of uncertainty, but because of it. And as you float in this field of maybes, you begin to sense something remarkable. Even in this realm of shadows and whispers, particles do not stay still. They move, they vanish, and sometimes they appear where they should not. It's as if, sometimes, the universe allows a shortcut. A particle, faced with a barrier, does not stop. It tunnels through. It is not supposed to, but it does. This too is part of the whisper, a secret passage carved through impossibility. And so you begin to wonder, what is a barrier, really, when even matter can slip through it unseen? What might it mean to pass through something impossible and appear whole on the other side? A barrier in the quantum world is not the end of the story. It is a question, not a command. A gentle challenge posed by reality and answered with mystery. Imagine standing at the foot of a wall. It is tall, thick, and made of solid stone. In the classical world, the world of apples falling and marbles rolling, the wall is final. You would need force, effort, or a key to get through. But in the quantum world, the story bends. Here, you, if you were a particle, might pause before the wall, and then, without warning, you would appear on the other side. Not by climbing it, not by breaking it, but by simply ... being there. This isn't magic. It is called quantum tunneling, a soft breach of classical rules, allowed not by defiance, but by the delicate logic of probability. You see, the universe at this scale doesn't ask, will the particle cross? It asks, what is the chance it might? If there is even the smallest possibility, the particle does not need a door. It simply uses chance like a thread, weaving its way through what seems impossible. You float alongside this idea. Your thoughts become as weightless as electrons, You begin to sense that barriers, too, are not as rigid as they appear. Just as an electron can tunnel, your mind can drift through its own doubts, through worry, through fear, not with force, but with softness, because softness, in this strange and flickering world, is not weakness. It is power. Quantum tunneling is not rare. It is happening now in your body, in the sun, in the wires of the device beside. You without it. There would be no fusion in stars, no light, no spark of warmth. Even the sun depends on particles doing the improbable. And so, improbability is not something to resist, it is something to trust. You think again of the atom, that shimmering cloud. It holds within it this strange wisdom, that what seems impossible may not be, that what seems uncertain may still unfold into form. Even the emptiness inside an atom is not absence, it is potential. It holds not silence, but hum, a soft frequency where fields shift, particles flicker, and reality is rewritten, moment by moment. Through choices no one controls, you begin to realize the world you touch is born from things you cannot touch, that behind every solid edge is a trembling, uncertain aging rise to something stable. And maybe this, too, is a way to live, too. Hold your own uncertainty gently, to let it be the soil from which meaning grows. You are not a single, unchanging thing. You are a wave, sometimes particle, sometimes possibility, and you are always more than where you are. Your presence ripples out through time, through memory, through connections seen and unseen. The particle tunnels, the atom, vibrates the universe even in its silence, sings. You lie still now, but within you, galaxies of motion continue. Electrons blink in and out of positions. Nuclei dance to rhythms older than stars. And in this ocean of motion, your being arises, not fixed, but always becoming so. Let yourself become. Let your mind float, not toward answers, but toward wonder. Because the more deeply you enter the world of the small, the more you find that boundaries blur, that opposites intertwine, that particles, like thoughts, don't always stay where you expect. And sometimes, through no force at all, they move beyond barriers, as if the universe, at its most fundamental level, believes in movement over stuckness, in flow over stuckness, in appearing gently on the other side. A moment ago, you drifted into the silent shimmer of the atom, a place of clouds and flickers, of presence woven from possibility. Now you feel the faint pressure of resistance ahead, not physical, not harsh, but something like a wall, and still. You float forward. This is the paradox. The wall remains, but you pass through. Here, in the quantum world, you meet a boundary that does not hold. You are like a particle, soft, uncertain, yet filled with quiet energy. The wall ahead is taller than your form, wider than your reach. In the classical world, it would be final, a stop sign written in the language of mass and matter. But in this world, rules whisper instead of shout. You arrive at the wall, a potential barrier. Scientists call it. It is not a physical brick wall, but a rise in energy, a slope too steep for your tiny quantum self to climb. There is not enough energy for you to leap over, and yet, you are gone from this side. You appear, gently, on the other, not because of force, not because of will, but because of probability. You have TUNNL, lead. This is quantum tunneling, the elegant, improbable act of slipping through what should be impenetrable. It is not cheating. It is not breaking the rules. It is simply the rules themselves, revealed in their truest, quietest form. In your world of macroscopic certainty, where rocks fall and waves crash and doors stay shut, this would be unthinkable. But down here, where particles flicker like fireflies in fog, the unthinkable is part of the design. You let yourself drift into this strange behavior. You are no longer an observer. You are the particle, hovering near the wall. Your energy is too low to cross the barrier. You shouldn't be able to continue. Yet the wave that is you does not stop abruptly. It fades not to nothing, but to a whisper, a thinning, a quiet shimmer of possibility that lingers in the forbidden zone. And then, softly, it reappears on the other side. You haven't broken through the wall. You've been permitted, by the math, by the nature of waves, to exist where you shouldn't. Not fully, not permanently, but enough to change everything. The more you think of it, the less it feels like escape, and the more it feels like surrender. Surrender to a world that isn't rigid, but fluid, where presence isn't about force, but about chance. The world of particles is not governed by solid lines. It is shaped by curves of probability, by fuzzy edges, by gradients of likelihood. The wall, too, is not absolute. It is simply a place where your chances fall, but never quite to zero. And when something isn't zero, it is still possible, even if only barely, even if only once in a billion times. That is enough. You begin to realize how much of reality is made from these near-impossibilities, in stars, in sensors, in your own cells. Particles tunnel, they pass through energy walls they shouldn't cross, and because they do, fusion happens. Reactions ignite, neurons fire, the sun shines dot. You warm your skin in the morning light, because deep in the heart of stars, protons tunnel into each other, fusing despite the odds. Every time a fusion reaction glows, it carries the signature of a wall passed through, of a no that quietly became a yes. And here, lying still, you wonder, what other walls might be like that? What other boundaries in life seem too high to climb? Not because they are real, but because you've never seen someone pass through. Maybe the world around you, like the quantum field within, is not as fixed as it appears. Maybe if you stop trying to force your way forward, and instead soften, slow, surrender, you too will find a thin point in the wall, the place where the impossible lets just a sliver of possibility shine through, just enough for you to pass. This is not hope built on wishful thinking. It is science built on mathematics, on experiments repeated, measured, confirmed. Scientists have seen it. In radioactive decay, a particle tunnels out of an atom's core. In scanning tunneling microscopes, electrons leap across gaps, allowing us to image surfaces, molecule by molecule. In the fusion that powers our stars, tunneling allows atoms to touch. It is not a theory of poetry, it is a truth of physics, and yet it is also poetry, because it speaks of hidden roots, of quiet pathways through what looks impassable. You lie here now, no longer wondering whether tunneling is real, but realizing how much of your world relies on it, and your body made of particles knows it too. Quantum tunneling isn't a stranger to your biology. It may be part of how enzymes operate, how your DNA repairs itself, how your senses perceive. Each breath may carry 1,000 invisible even-square particles quietly crossed lines. They shouldn't, and the you that wakes in the morning's been shaped, in part, by tunneling that happened as you slept. This is not a forceful process. It is delicate, gentle, rare, but it is enough to shape galaxies, to power suns, to birth thoughts. You return now to the image of the wall, once solid, once absolute, but now you see that walls can be real and still not be final. They can resist, but not defeat. You carry this softness with you, this awareness that not all motion requires muscle, that not all progress is made with noise. Sometimes all it takes is presence, the presence of possibility. You lie still, but your thoughts ripple outward, like waves across a probability field, gently touching the edge of the next mystery, because just beyond the wall where you now rest, something else stirs, a deeper question. If particles can pass through walls, what does that say about where they are, or even what it means to be somewhere? Where is a particle, truly, if it can disappear here and reappear there? What does it mean to be in two places at once? If being somewhere is no longer fixed, if presence can stretch, fade, and reappear, then the idea of location softens too. You imagine yourself not as a point, but as a wave, not locked into one position, but spread gently across space. A presence, not pinned, but smeared like moonlight across a quiet lake. This is how a particle moves in the quantum world. It does not take one path, but many. It explores every route, every winding possibility at once. And when faced with a wall, it does not choose, it does not knock, it simply flows quietly through the thinnest seams, like water finding cracks in stone. The wave does not break the wall, it weaves around it. This might seem like imagination, but it is measurable, observable. Physicists call it tunneling probability, the mathematical chance that a particle will be found in the other side of a potential barrier. The thicker the wall, the smaller the chance, the wider the energy gap, the less likely the crossing. But as long as the probability is not zero, there is always a chance, and nature will take it. There is no need for a doorway. The universe has already written one into the laws. You breathe slowly now, feeling the comfort in that idea, that even when something seems too thick to move through, there may still be a way, invisible, improbable, and real. Your mind drifts to the tiny particles that carry electricity, electrons moving through circuits, powering the quiet hum of your room, the glow of the screen, the gentle rhythm of your resting body. In the smallest wires of modern computers, electrons tunnel from one place to another, crossing barriers too narrow to block them. It is no longer a rare event. It is a routine act of modern technology. Tunneling has become practical. It has become part of daily life, even if unseen. Quantum mechanics, once thought too strange for the real world, has built the devices that hold your memories, record your voice, and connect you with distant hearts. This is not distant science. It is folded into your breath, your tools, your tomorrow, and it reminds you, sometimes, what seems strange is simply unfamiliar. What seems impossible is just rarely observed. Even the earth beneath you, solid as it feels, is made of particles that pulse with quantum strangeness. Without tunneling, radioactive decay wouldn't occur. Without decay, the core of Earth wouldn't stay warm. Without warmth, tectonic plates wouldn't move. And without that motion, the land you sleep on would never have formed. Tunneling is part of the reason you have a planet to lie upon. And so you rest differently now. Not on a cold, still surface, but upon a world constantly reborn by quiet, invisible motion by particles slipping through the impossible dot in that thought. Something in you softens. You begin to reflect on your own inner barriers, emotional ones, fears, beliefs, that tell you where you end and where you cannot go. Perhaps these, too, are not solid. Perhaps within them are thin seams, places where, gently, you might pass through, not by pushing, but by being present, by allowing the natural pulse of your life to find its way. You may not always have the energy to leap over, but you may have the softness to slip through. This is not weakness, it is the strength of quantum nature, delicate, patient, unstoppable, like the particle. You move not through force, but through fidelity to your nature, wave and possibility, stillness and motion together. And maybe that's what tunneling truly teaches, that persistence doesn't always roar, that change can come through silence, through still presence carried over time, a whisper passing through stone, a hope appearing on the other side. You lie here now. On that other side, the wall didn't vanish, but it no longer holds you, and as you rest in that small miracle, you feel something else, not beyond, but beside, a deeper mystery, one that feels like a paradox, wrapped in quiet light, because sometimes particles don't just tunnel from one place to another, sometimes they exist in both. There is a rhythm under the silence now, a gentle rising and falling, like a tide you didn't notice before. It is not the beat of your heart, nor the rhythm of your breath. It is quieter than that. It belongs to the particles that make you. They do not stay put. They do not obey lines or fences or walls. They drift, flicker, tunnel, appearing here, disappearing there, without resistance or announcement. And so begins the dance. You are no longer just a passive watcher of tunneling now. You are part of its movement. You become the rhythm, the probability wave, the soft edge between presence and absence. Picture a particle approaching a barrier again. It doesn't slam into it. It doesn't stop cold. Instead, its wave function, the mathematical shadow of its being, presses gently against the boundary. And then, as if nothing were wrong, it flows through. You could say it chooses the impossible, but it doesn't choose at all. It exists in the possibility of movement. It dances with the wall. The act of tunneling isn't forceful. It is graceful. It's a pirouette across boundaries. The particle does not ask, "Can I?" It simply is, part here, part there, never fully stopped, never fully bound. You think of all the times you've met your own walls, times when logic said no, when circumstances pinned you in place, and yet something inside you slipped forward. Anyway, you moved, not with certainty, but with feeling. You crossed over a fear, a doubt, a silence. That too was a kind of tunneling, because there are boundaries in life that don't yield to pressure, but soften to presence. The particle teaches you that existence is not always about pushing. Sometimes it's about vibrating in place, until your wave overlaps with freedom. And when enough of you exists on the other side of the wall, you are already there. This is the tunneling dance, not a leap, but a sway, a rhythm written into the smallest parts of reality. It happens on a scale you cannot see, but it shapes all that you do. It happens in semiconductors, the foundations of your electronics. Electrons tunnel across narrow junctions, allowing memory to be stored, processors to function, information to live and flow. Your thoughts, your messages, even this story, they pass through chips where particles tunnel endlessly. Your words exist because tunneling exists. It happens in nature too, in enzymes that fold and shift to catalyze reactions, where tunneling lets protons rearrange themselves and create life-sustaining change. Some biologists even believe that smell itself may involve quantum tunneling as particles dance through scent receptors, telling your brain what the world feels like. This dance is not always visible, but it is always present. It hums beneath your awareness, a choreography of becoming. Particles that should stay stuck simply do not. They glide through, again and again, with grace the size of eternity. And it is not just about motion, but about time. In tunneling, time itself becomes strange. Sometimes it seems as if the particle crosses the wall faster than it should, not by cheating time, but by existing in a state where the wall almost doesn't matter. The particle does not move through the wall as if walking a corridor. It fades into the barrier and emerges on the far side, like fog dissolving into light. This is not a delay. It is not a race. It is a new kind of motion, measured in the language of probability, and that language speaks of presence without position, arrival without departure, action without trace. Tunneling is a mystery, yes, but not a broken rule. It is a secret kept by the universe, not one it forgot. The math confirms it, the experiments repeat it, and the universe hums with its rhythm. So you lie here now, carried not by answers, but by gentle resonance. You do not need to understand tunneling. You already are it. Your body, your warmth, your thoughts, they all depend on this quiet permission. Particles are given to move through barriers, and perhaps you can give yourself the same permission to move gently through your limits, to slip past the old definitions of self, to exist in a soft rhythm, neither stopped nor rushing, but flowing. Even sleep, now approaching, feels like a kind of tunneling dot. You begin in one world, surrounded by edges and noise. Then, without fanfare, you pass through into another, a place beyond waking and yet real, a place where time blurs, where thoughts dissolve, where you emerge renewed, without remembering the crossing. This is the dance you've always known, and the universe knows it, too. Each particle that tunnels teaches this truth, that the line between here and there is thinner than it seems, that existence is not confined, but curious, and as you drift deeper, you begin to feel the presence of something even stranger, a state not of being here or there, but both. Subatomic, where particles don't just dance across the boundary, but hold the steps of every path at once. You feel the edge of this new idea approaching, not as a sharp corner, but as a widening space, a gentle doorway into a deeper strangeness, where the particle is not just here, and not just there, but both at once. But before you step into that world, you return again to the rhythm of tunneling, the quiet motion of particles slipping through their limits. There is something comforting about it, this repeated whisper from the universe that no obstacle is truly final, that within every impasse there is a ghost of movement still allowed, and that movement is enough. You imagine 1,000 particles inside your body, tapping gently against barriers. Not all succeed, but some slip through, and those few make all the difference. Not every moment needs to be dramatic. Most change is subtle. Most breakthroughs are barely noticed, but they add up. You think of a seed pushing through, soil dot of water trickling through cracks in stone, of light passing through, narrow slits and painting patterns on a wall. All of it echoes this same quiet truth. Softness, repeated, reshapes the world. The particle doesn't argue with the wall. It doesn't resist it. It accepts its presence and, still, it moves. You begin to wonder, what if that's the lesson? Not to overcome through struggle, but to pass through. With patience. What if the tunnel isn't a flaw in the wall, but part of its design? This way of moving, it's not loud, it's not urgent, it's not even certain, but it works. And inside you, there's a part that understands. You've moved like this before, passed through emotional walls without realizing, made it through days you thought you couldn't, crossed into mornings when you expected only darkness. That, too, was tunneling. Even sleep itself can be this gentle transition, one state melting into another. Without boundaries, without command, you drift in and emerge hours later, touched by a mystery you never needed to name. Particles do not remember their journey through the barrier. They do not carry scars from the wall. They are simply found on the other side, unchanged, yet utterly transformed. You wonder now about the space inside the barrier. What happens there? When a particle tunnels, it moves through a region it has no energy to inhabit, and yet it exists there briefly as a faded version of itself, a ghost wave, a trace of being without full presence. It is a place between real and not real, between here and there, a pause in the story, where the future is not yet chosen. And you've felt this, to dot in the in-betweens of your life, in moments where you were no longer who you had been, but not yet who you would become. Those twilight spaces between decisions, between relationships, between versions of yourself. You were inside the barrier, and still you made it through. The universe, it seems, knows how to hold you seven in those undefined places. It does not rush us. It does not demand clarity. It allows us to drift, to fade, to emerge. And maybe that's why tunneling is so comforting, because it shows you don't have to force your way forward. You can trust the wave. That is Yuto, find the narrowest seam and pass through. Particles dance not in defiance, but in accordance with something deeper. They follow the mathematics of possibility. They express the quiet, certain tifit movement will continue, even when the path is unclear, and you, in your stillness, are already part of that dance. So you rest not because you were done, but because you know the rhythm will carry you. You let the noise of certainty go. You stop asking, will it work? And instead ask, what if it does? You ask it gently, like a breath into mist, like a step in the dark where the floor appears beneath evenly after you've moved. This is the nature of trust, as much as it is the nature of physics. And now, as you prepare to drift even deeper, you sense the boundaries of space growing thinner. The particle does not just pass through barriers. It does not only travel from one place to another, a cat in a box, a particle on two paths, a self with most. Sometimes it does not choose a path, it takes them all. It exists in more than one place at once. It lives in superposition, a strange, beautiful idea, where presence is not singular, but spread, where identity is not fixed, but shimmering. You feel yourself drawn toward that idea, like a wave finding its next shore. And as the tunneling fades behind you, the dance of probabilities gives way to something softer still, quiet holding of multiple truths, than one shape. It waits for you there, in a place beyond logic. You sit in a quiet room. The air is still, as if the world has paused for a breath not yet taken. On a small table before you rests a simple box, unremarkable, closed, silent. Yet inside it, A mystery purrs, or doesn't. This is where you begin. Imagine, if you will, a cat inside the box. You cannot see it, you cannot hear it. You do not know if it is alive or dead. All you have is the box and your thoughts. This thought experiment, Schrödinger's cat, may sound like a puzzle of logic, but in truth, it is an invitation, a gentle knock on the door of your imagination, asking you to enter a realm where logic loosens its grip and possibility takes root. Inside that box, in the absence of observation, quantum mechanics whispers its curious rule that something can exist in multiple states at once. The cat, for all intents and quantum purposes, is both alive and dead. Not in a metaphorical sense, not as a poetic gesture, but as a literal statement of its nature. You let that settle in. It's like moonlight falling on a rippling pond, each reflection a version of the moon, shimmering and real, yet not the moon itself. In the same way, the cat exists in two states, two stories, until your gaze collapses the question into a single answer, alive or dead. The box, once opened, removes the ambiguity. It tears the delicate veil of possibility. But until then, the universe holds its breath. Until then, reality is suspended in a strange ballet of maybes. This is superposition. It is not so different from moments in your own life. You've stood at crossroads, uncertain. Will the letter arrive? Will the diagnosis be benign? Will the one you love return your call? Before the answer is known, the world branches, each path quietly forming, hovering, waiting, and in that hush, you live with multiple outcomes. You live with contradiction. Quantum physics, it turns out, is not so far from the human heart. But to understand this fully, you must step inside the mathematics that lives beneath the metaphor. A quantum particle, unlike a marble or a grain of sand, is not located in a single, definite place. Instead, it is described by a wave function, a ghostly ripple across space, representing all the places it might be. Until measured, it isn't here or there. It is both. You are not observing a particle. You are observing probability. The cat in the box becomes a symbol, not of feline tragedy, but of this strange quantum truth. Inside, a radioactive atom may or may not decay. A Geiger counter might click or not. A poison may be released or held back. And so, the cat's fate hangs in a liminal state, wrapped in the arms of quantum uncertainty. It is not cruel. It is curious as you sit with this thought. The air of your quiet room feels subtly altered, not heavier, but more open, more filled with possibility. You begin to realize that uncertainty is not a flaw in the fabric of the universe. It is the fabric from one angle. It is maddening. How can a thing be two things? How can opposites coexist without resolution? But from another angle, it is beautiful. It means the universe is more generous than we thought. It allows for contradiction. It allows for doubt. It allows for a cat to be both shadow and breath. And isn't that what dreaming is, too? A place where your mind walks to paths, holds two truths, swims through time not as a straight arrow but as a tide of feelings, impressions, potentials. In sleep, as in quantum space, you drift between what is and what might be. You begin to see that this thought experiment, this simple box and cat, is not about cats at all. It's about you. It's about how you think, about how you hold questions without rushing to answers, about how the unknown can be a space of peace, not panic. Let's step deeper You imagine the wave function, a smooth, undulating curve, like a silk ribbon caught in slow wind. It represents not one location, but all locations, not one outcome, but a spectrum, and the act of measurement, the act of looking, is what collapses that ribbon into a point. This is called wave function collapse. But what causes it? Is it the physical apparatus? Is it the conscious observer? Is reality waiting for you to look before it decides what it is? Here, you wander into the thicket of interpretation. Some scientists argue that the universe splits into many with every possible outcome realized in its own branch, the many worlds interpretation. Others say, reality doesn't exist until observed, a view wrapped in philosophical fog. You, sitting here with the box, don't need to choose. You only need to sit with the idea that reality may be participatory, that you are not merely a witness to the universe, but part of the mechanism by which it unfolds. You breathe that in. The boundaries blur. You feel less like a spectator, more like a thread woven into the tapestry. You wonder, if a cat can be in two states, what about you? Are there moments in your past that never truly resolved, where part of you still lives in the version where you said yes or no or walked away? Are you, too, a kind of superposition? The question is not meant to haunt, it's meant to soothe. Because if the universe allows for multiple truths, then your contradictions are not failures, they are features. You think back to moments of doubt, moments where you didn't know what would happen next. That space of waiting, that in-between, felt fragile, but now, with Shredjan's shadow beside you, you see it differently. That waiting was a state of superposition, a place where potential thrived in some quiet way. You realize that hope lives in the same space, because hope is a kind of superposition. The belief that something not yet real may become real. If only we don't look away. Even memory, you notice, feels unstable now. The more you recall an event, the more it shifts. The mind is not a perfect recorder. It is a wave function of recollection, collapsing each time into a version, never the same, always close, always changing. So you sit longer with the box, not to open it, but to appreciate it, to learn from its silence. It teaches you to wait, to wonder, to allow space for both answers, or for none at all. In the distance, somewhere beyond thought, another possibility flickers. You picture a future where machines can hold superpositions, too. Quantum computers, systems that use qubits instead of bits, not ones or zeros, but both at once. Their power doesn't come from speed alone, but from parallelism, from the ability to explore many solutions at once. Such machines could rewrite how we solve problems. But more than that, they embody something deeply poetic, a machine that dreams in maybes. You wonder, what will it mean for us to build machines that think not in black and white, but in probability waves? Perhaps it will teach us to think differently, to move from certainty to softness, from conclusions to questions, from either or to both, and as this chapter drifts toward its final breath, you feel a gentle comfort settle in. The cat may never have existed. The box may be imaginary, but the lesson that the unknown is not to be feared, but cradled, is real. You close your eyes, imagining the lid still sealed, the question still alive. You don't need an answer tonight. You simply sit with the knowing that both can be true, even if only for a while, and as you do, you begin to sense something else waiting behind the curtain of this thought. Not about cats, but about particles. About entanglement, about how one thing, once touched by another, is never truly alone again. And as you do, you begin to sense something else waiting behind the curtain of this thought, not about cats, but about particles, about entanglement, about how one thing, once touched by another, is never truly alone again. You rest your gaze softly on this idea. Entanglement, the next doorway in your quiet journey, feels like the whisper of a memory, like the warmth of a hand once held that somehow still lingers. It begins not with boxes or cats, but with pairs, particles born together, dancing in perfect symmetry. Imagine two particles, twins of the quantum world, created in a single moment from a shared burst of energy. And then they drift apart. One goes left, the other right. They may be separated by miles, by planets, by galaxies, but something between them remains connected, not by wires or waves, but by a bond deeper than space. If you measure one, the other responds instantly, as if the space between them didn't exist at all. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. He didn't like it. It felt too strange, too fast, too outside the laws he knew. He preferred the idea that we simply didn't know enough, that there were hidden variables, secrets tucked into the fabric of the particles themselves. But again and again, experiments have shown otherwise. This connection is not a trick. It's real, unbreakable, silent, and it changes everything. You imagine sending one half of a particle pair to the far side of the moon. The other stays with you, resting in the soft hum of your room. When you measure yours, say, its spin, the one on the moon reveals its twin nature in perfect opposition, not delayed, not after light could have traveled, but instantly. You pause, heart slowed, breath softened. What does it mean for something to be so deeply connected that space becomes irrelevant? What does it mean for distance to dissolve in the presence of relation? You look within. Perhaps you've felt this before. In moments when you think of someone, only to hear from them seconds later, or when you dream of someone long gone and wake up feeling their presence like perfume in the air. Maybe these are only coincidences, but part of you wonders if something else is echoing beneath. Entanglement is not about magic. It's about memory, not memory of the mind, but memory of the moment, of origin. A kind of quantum intimacy, where two things remember that they were once one. You picture it now, floating like a soft ribbon between two stars. One tug, and the other moves. It's delicate, invisible, but absolute. And again, you see yourself reflected in this truth. We think of ourselves as individuals, sealed inside, separate. Bodies, separate lives. But how many of your choices have been shaped by others? How many of your thoughts were born from a word someone once said? How many of your joys are echoes of someone else's laughter? Perhaps we are more entangled than we know. Entanglement does not allow us to send messages faster than light. It doesn't break causality or give us control. But it does remind us that the universe is not a machine of isolated parts. It is a web, shimmering, alive, where relationship is as real as matter. And here, something shifts in you. The cat in the box was a solitary question, but entanglement is a shared one. It says, you are not alone, not in thought, not in matter, not in time. You drift deeper into the quiet of this idea. The stars, too, were once tangled in the same fire. Every atom in your body was once part of something greater, a cloud, a collision, a cosmic breath. Your iron was forged in a dying star. Your water, ancient as oceans on other worlds. You are not an observer. You are a participant, and in that knowing, something eases in you. The pressure to understand, to resolve, to grasp every truth, it softens. You let go, you float, you think again of the cat, the box, the choice to observe, and you realize, in quantum mechanics, the question is not just what is real, but when does something become real? What counts as observation? What counts as attention? Perhaps the world waits to take form, not just in a lab, but in every moment you truly look to see the leaf in sunlight, to feel the pulse of your own hand, to hear a voice and listen, maybe. Observation is not passive. Maybe it is creative. Maybe by paying attention, you draw reality out of the shadows. And maybe, by loving, you make the invisible visible, so you close your eyes again, resting now on the idea that uncertainty is not emptiness, it is possibility. That entanglement is not confinement, it is kinship. In the silence, something glows at the edge of your awareness, not a box, not a cat, not even a particle, but a question. If all things are connected, what happens when we begin to remember those connections? What happens when we don't just look, but look together? There's a silence inside the question you haven't asked yet, a hush before the moment splits. You are not walking a single path through life, nor floating like a leaf on one current. You are hovering in a mist of possibility, a cloud of quantum chances, some close, some distant, all whispering softly around you. In classical physics, everything is neat cause and effect fall into place like dominoes. You kick the first one, and the rest tumble forward in order. But in the quantum world, nothing is quite so certain here. Events don't tick forward, they shimmer. Imagine your future not as a single line drawn through time, but as a field of fireflies blinking in the dark. Each light is a version of you, a you who took a different turn, thought a different thought, paused for one more heartbeat before stepping forward, and all of them are real. In a way, all of them are written into the mathematics of the moment, but until the light touches one, they stay unchosen, suspended in. Maybe you are a dancer in fog, and the fog is made of futures. This isn't just poetry. It's physics in quantum mechanics. Particles don't move from point A to point B in a straight, determined line. Instead, they explore every possible path, every arc, every zigzag, every detour, all considered, all present. This principle is called the path integral formulation, and it tells us that the reality we see is just one of many threads woven together by probability. Imagine tossing a stone into a pond in our daily world. The stone arcs, lands, and sinks. But in the quantum world, the stone goes every way it could possibly go, upward, sideways, even backward in time. In the mathematics of the moment, and only when we look, when we measure, does one path rise from the mist. It is not chaos, it is not indecision, it is a soft, shimmering cloud of possibility, and it is where you live. Close your eyes for a moment and feel it. Not knowing the next step doesn't mean being lost, it means you're open, it means the universe is still deciding with you. There's something freeing about uncertainty. When you stop fearing it, when you let go of the demand to always know, your mind, trained to map and measure, may struggle at first. It wants a direction, a yes or no, a door that closes with certainty behind it. But what if the most honest doors are the ones that stay ajar? Quantum particles live in superposition, a state of being many things at once, here and there. Spin up and spin down, like a whisper echoing in both ears at once. Only when observed, when pressed for certainty, does a particle settle, choosing a side, and you, too, are in superposition more often than you think. When you stand on the edge of a choice, to speak or stay quiet, to leap or hold back, to forgive or retreat, you are many versions of yourself. The one who says yes, the one who says no, all fluttering gently, waiting. You do not betray yourself by choosing one. You complete a possibility, you bring it into focus. But the others, the might-have-beens, don't vanish with regret. They ripple softly like waves in still water, fading not with anger but with grace. And the beautiful part, they return not as the same opportunity, but as echoes, as moods, as dreams, as moments that feel strangely familiar. The quantum world does not forget. It remembers in patterns. In a world of probabilities, comfort comes not from the certainty of where you're going, but from the gentleness with which you hold the unknown. You sit by a window in your mind. Outside, clouds drift in slow procession. Some are heavy with rain. Some glow golden in the dusk. You don't know which will pass or stay, only that they're all real, and that you are here to witness them with open eyes. You start to feel the rhythm of quantum chance in your own thoughts. That quiet moment, before you speak, a superposition of words, that dream you wake from, hovering between meanings, a tangle of possibility. Even memory is less fixed than you think. Each time you recall a moment, your brain reweaves it. You are not a record, but a poem rewritten. Probability lives not just in particles, but in the folds of your being. You're not just made of atoms. You're made of chances, of paths not taken, still shaping the contours of your heart. There's a story told in the mathematics of Feynman diagrams, little arrows drawn to show how particles might interact. Some lines curve forward, others loop back on themselves. They're not literal paths, but possibilities. Even vacuum, the nothingness between stars, is not empty. It seethes with virtual particles, flickering into and out of existence, borrowing time from nothing, existing just long enough to maybe become something. That's the kind of world you're part of. Even your silence hums with potential. Even your stillness has shape. Perhaps you worry sometimes that you've chosen the wrong path, that a better version of you is walking some parallel road, laughing where you are quiet, succeeding where you feel stalled. But in the quantum view, no single story wins. No version of you erases the rest. They all exist, not as ghosts to haunt you, but as companions in the fog. Their steps echo yours. Their lessons whisper softly across the thin membranes of possibility, and maybe, just maybe, they envy you for the choices you did make, for the wisdom you gained by walking this thread, this shimmering line of now dot. You are not trapped in one outcome. You are unfolding, always unfolding, like a lotus, opening petal by petal in the dark dot, each decision a bloom, each hesitation a breath between blossoms. When you look up at the stars, know this: the photons reaching your eyes traveled not one path, but every possible one. They danced with uncertainty. They took long ways and short, and somehow, improbably, gently, they arrived, and so do you. You arrive at your moments, not with precision, but with grace, not with the cold math of a line, but with the warm mystery of a cloud. Uncertainty There's a kind of trust that lives beyond logic. A surrender that doesn't mean giving up. It means opening up to rest. Improbability is to believe that what unfolds with you, not in spite of you. That even chance carries care. And now, as you float towards sleep, let your mind stretch gently, not outward in search, but inward in acceptance. You are not a mistake in motion. You are a masterpiece in progress. You are not walking a line. You are dancing in a mist, and each footfall, each breath, sends ripples across the cloud of potential. You do not need to know exactly where you're going. You only need to feel the softness of the ground. Beneath you, wherever it appears, a wall stands before you. It is not brick or stone or steel. It has no color, no sound, no weight, and yet it blocks your way. You reach out, and though your hand passes through nothing, something is there, something that says stop. But particles don't always listen in the soft hush of atomic silence. They do something else. They tunnel. You are small now, smaller than small. You are quantum-sized, drifting as a whisper through an energy field. You glide toward a barrier, a hill made not of rock, but of possibility. According to every classical rule, you do not have enough energy to pass through. The hill should stop you, should turn you back, but you do not turn, you do not climb, you dissolve through it. This is the wonder of quantum tunneling at this scale. Certainty slips away. Position becomes probability. Momentum becomes murmur. You don't move like a marble on a track, but like a ripple in still water, spreading wide, uncertain, soft. And because of this softness, this spread, part of you stretches into the forbidden zone, into the space you should not be able to reach. And sometimes the impossible happens. You appear on the other side. Why? No classical answer fits. Not Newton, not force, not logic with hard edges. Only a wave function, a mathematical whisper that describes not where you are, but where you might be. Your wave doesn't stop at the wall. It fades, yes, but it doesn't vanish. And that fading, that trembling shadow beyond the boundary holds a slim chance, a silent maybe, and sometimes maybe is enough. You think of electrons in semiconductors, those clever little travelers that leap across barriers they shouldn't cross. Without this forbidden passage, your world of modern technology would vanish. No transistors, no memory chips, no solar panels catching sunlight like whispers from the sky. Every spark of computation, every flicker of code, rests on the back of this strange ability. Quantum tunneling is not rebellion. It is poetry, a surrender to uncertainty, a soft agreement with possibility. It doesn't say, I must go through. It says, I might. And that might is enough to shape reality. So how does it work? You imagine a particle approaching a barrier, like a ball rolling toward a hill. In the macroscopic world, if the ball lacks energy, it rolls back. But here, beneath the floorboards of certainty, particles are not points, they are waves. And waves can stretch, flow, and bleed through boundaries. The barrier becomes a kind of veil, not impassable, just improbable. The thicker and higher the wall, the smaller the chance of passage, but never zero. Never quite. There is always a shimmer of perhaps. You drift into the tale of alpha decay, how particles buried deep in atomic nuclei escape not by force, but by tunneling. How an alpha particle, held tight in a nucleus cage, waits and waits. Its wave function reaches through the wall, And sometimes, once in a trillion tries, it finds itself outside, free. The barrier did not fall. The particle did not climb. It simply appeared, like a dream slipping into daylight. This is how stars breathe. This is how atoms evolve. This is how matter transforms. You float gently now, as if watching from the far end of a telescope. The universe rearranges itself, not with clangs and hammers, but with quantum sighs. Subtle, tender escapes from what should be impossible. Tunneling even happens in the hearts of stars. When hydrogen fuses into helium, it does so because of tunneling, because in that boiling, radiant core, particles pressed too close for comfort do not need to collide. They need only try, and their wave functions, those soft probabilities, do the rest. Without tunneling, the stars would remain silent. You, stardust-born, would not be reading this. Why do particles tunnel? Perhaps the better question is, why not? There is no conscious choice, no clever scheme, just the mathematics of uncertainty written into the bones of the cosmos. A particle exists in more than one place. Its presence leaks, like scent from a sealed jar, and that leak becomes possibility. The walls we imagine are not absolute. They are thresholds of likelihood. And what a gentle thought that is. What you think is a barrier may only be a veil of improbability. Not a wall, but a whisper. Not no, but maybe. A narrow door of chance that you or a particle might pass through. Even biology listens to this whisper. Enzymes coax electrons through energy landscapes, using tunneling as a quiet tool. Photosynthesis, the green breath of leaves, is not purely chemical. It is quantum choreography, tuned by tunneling. Life itself pirouettes on the edge of. Maybe you begin to feel the strangeness as serenity. A deep peace flows from this idea, that not everything must be forced, that sometimes what you seek is found by waiting, by being, by allowing probability to cradle you across impossible divides. In some quantum experiments, scientists fire particles at barriers again and again, counting how often they appear on the far side. A fraction always makes it through, not because they fought harder, but because the universe allows for softness, for improbability, for tunneling. And you wonder, in your own life, how many of your own barriers are just veils of belief, how many impossible things have simply not been tried enough times. The more you try, the more you trust in the maybe, the more the unlikely becomes real. Tunneling is not escape. It is persistence in uncertainty. It reminds you don't always have to leap. Sometimes you can flow. Sometimes you can seep through the cracks in what you think you know. This changes the story. It means that what seems forbidden may be gently passed. If approached with enough stillness, enough surrender, you close your eyes and rest inside this truth. The universe does not always ask for energy. Sometimes it asks only for presence, for potential, for patience. And in that silence, passage is possible, not by force, not by breaking, but by being. Tunneling is a permission written into reality itself, a whisper that says, try again, a murmur that says, what if, a breath that says, even when the path is blocked, your story is not. As you drift further into thought, you imagine a mirror, not one made of glass, but of quantum rules. A mirror that does not reflect your image, but your probabilities, your alternatives, your echoes. What lies beyond it. What happens when you tunnel not just through space, but through time, through identity, through logic itself. And what if the world you knew, your certainty, your solidity, was only one side of that mirror? What waits on the other? You turn, slowly, gently, toward the next idea, toward entanglement, where particles dance not alone, but as if mirrored in the cosmos, where separation is only an illusion of distance, and every tunnel leads not away, but deeper into togetherness, where two particles, no matter how far, remain connected in a way even light cannot explain. And in that quiet knowing, you begin to see the barriers were never barriers at all, just invitations to go deeper. And as you float through the soft veil of uncertainty, you feel the pull of another, distant, invisible, and yet unmistakably linked. It is not gravity that pulls you now. It is something subtler, stranger. A thread with no thickness, no color, no tension you can measure. And yet it tugs at you as though your very existence is echoed somewhere else. You pause, but the feeling does not fade. This is not attraction. This is connection. A kind of correspondence between you and something, someone you have never touched. As though the very act of being here now shapes something over there. Then, tunneling has shown you that walls are suggestions. Now, you begin to suspect that separation might be one too, because deep within the quantum world, where probability hums like a distant lullaby, there exists a deeper mystery, entanglement, the phenomenon where two particles, once linked, remain inseparably intertwined, no matter the distance between them. It defies space, laughs at time, dances beyond what our eyes can track or our minds can easily hold. But you can feel it. You imagine two particles, born together in the heart of a star. They spin outwards, sent in opposite directions, flung across the cosmos. One streaks toward a comet, the other toward a pale blue world where you now dream. They move apart, light years apart, and yet the connection remains. If you measure one, the other responds instantly, as if no distance ever existed between them at all. Not a message, not a signal, but a kind of shared being. Physicists call it non-locality. You might call it unity. It's tempting to resist. The classical mind rebels. How could one particle know about the other? How could they affect each other without a thread to pull, without a bridge to cross? But perhaps the thread is woven into space itself. Perhaps space is not what it seems. Perhaps it is not a void between things, but a tapestry, a net. And entangled particles are not two separate points, but two ripples in the same pattern. Tunneling showed you the gentle absurdity of passage through walls. Entanglement asks you to question walls altogether. You let this thought wrap around you, soft and wide, like a fog that comforts rather than confuses. There is elegance in this uncertainty. Perhaps you, too, are entangled with moments, with people, with memories that live beyond your skin. Perhaps some part of you stretches invisibly into another heart, another story, another lifetime of possibility. The particles don't know they're strange. They simply exist in a shared state, a harmony of being. It's we, the observers, who impose the expectation of separateness. Entanglement is not about messages, it's about mirrors. When one turns, the other reflects. When one quiets, the other stills. No light is exchanged, no speed is broken, and yet the correlation holds perfectly, relentlessly, across even the largest chasms. This is not intuition. It is experiment. It is fact. It is the very spine of quantum mechanics. And yet, no one fully knows how. The mystery is not a flaw. It is the door. You rest in that doorway, now, at the edge of understanding, baby. You don't need to force an answer. Maybe it's enough to marvel. You think again of the barrier you passed, the quantum. While you tunneled through it, softly, improbably, you emerged different. Not changed, perhaps, but repositioned. And now you find yourself tethered, not by cause, but by relation, as if each event, each state, is part of a larger whole. You breathe in, you are a wave, not a point, a possibility, not a fixed thing. And in that wide wave form of who you are, you touch things you cannot see, people, particles, patterns. You exist, in part, through your relationships. So do electrons. So do photons. So does the universe. Entanglement is not rare. It is not a curiosity at the edge of science. It is a central rhythm, a foundational hum in the background of all things. The more we study it, the more it establishes, and yet the more it teaches us something quietly profound, that we are never truly alone. The particle that tunnels through a wall does not forget where it came from. It is not reborn on the other side. It is still linked to what it once touched. You feel the truth of that, too. Moments you thought were behind you still ripple in the fabric of now. People you've left behind still shimmer at the edge of your thoughts. Perhaps those connections aren't illusions. Perhaps they're entanglements, long threads that bend through time and mind and meaning. You do not always need to see the thread to believe in its pull. And perhaps that is the great gift of quantum reality. It invites you to trust the invisible dot too. Rest in the unlikely dot, to let go of needing every answer. Tunneling opened the door. Entanglement invites you to step through it as you float onward in this meditative drift through the strange elegance of the very small. A new question rises, like morning fog from a hidden pond. If particles can be linked across space, could they be linked across time? You lie still. Your breath is soft, rising and falling like the tides of some ancient, unseen sea. But beneath the surface of this calm, beneath skin, muscle, and the rhythm of your pulse, something extraordinary is happening. Particles are moving through walls. Yes, without breaking, without burning, without cutting. They pass through barriers that, by all classical logic, they shouldn't. This is quantum tunneling. And it is not just something that happens in distant labs or deep space phenomena. It is happening inside you, right now. Let your mind drift gently into your own body, not in the way you usually picture it, with blood vessels and tissue, with bones and cells, but deeper, smaller. Picture the building blocks, the atoms. Picture electrons and protons whirling like fireflies caught in a jar of jelly. Now zoom further, beyond their dance, and into the realm where certainty fades and only probability remains. Here, the walls are not walls. In this tiny world, particles behave like waves. They shimmer with uncertainty. They flicker like candlelight. In the wind appearing here, disappearing there, not because they've moved in a straight line, but because they've tunneled. It's not metaphorical. It's real. Imagine you are a proton. You are nestled inside the sun, caught in the dense, scorching core. You want to fuse to become part of something bigger, to give off light and energy. But another proton stands before you, and the repulsive force between your charges pushes you apart. The barrier is immense, and yet, without force, without speed, you tunnel. You pass through the wall, and fusion happens. This is how the sun shines. And inside your cells, tunneling is not just cosmic, it is biological. Each heartbeat, each thought, each sigh is tied to the delicate chemistry of your cells. Deep inside mitochondria, the tiny power plants of life, a process unfolds called electron transport. In the last delicate step, electrons must travel from one molecule to another, slipping across a molecular space. But the distance is too wide for a simple hop. It is like a canyon, impossible by classical standards, and yet they tunnel. You are alive because they do. Close your eyes and picture this. Within your brain, dopamine is waiting to pass a signal, a thought, a joy, a motion of your hand. The receptors stand across a synaptic cleft, and the tiny quantum messengers begin their strange journey. At each junction, tunneling offers a path, improbable, ghost-like, and yet successful. Even your sense of smell may whisper of quantum mystery. When a molecule drifts into your nose, it doesn't just fit into a receptor like a key in a lock. Some researchers believe it vibrates, and when it vibrates at just the right frequency, an electron on the receptor may tunnel through, triggered not by shape, but by soundless quantum resonance. This idea, quantum olfaction, is not yet universally accepted, but the possibility is stirring. It means that your nose may be playing a silent violin to identify a rose, and in the quiet labyrinth of your DNA, enzymes read the code of life. Sometimes, a hydrogen atom must shift from one base pair to another. It's not an easy leap. But, with quantum tunneling, the leap becomes a slide through the impossible. A blur of presence, a flicker across time. What is most extraordinary is not that this happens, but that it happens reliably. The chaos of quantum uncertainty somehow becomes the bedrock of biological precision. You are a being of tunneling, of probability, of flickering presence and potential. Let that settle over you like a warm fog. You are not separate from the strangeness. You are the strangeness, refined. Every breath, every blink, is a symphony of near impossibilities that, together, form something constant. Your life, now think of the walls in your life. Not physical ones, but mental, emotional, existential, the things that feel impossible to pass through. What if you, too, could tunnel through them? Not with effort, not by force, but by allowing the improbable, by trusting in uncertainty. Quantum tunneling doesn't defy rules, it works within them. It reminds us that the rules are not what we once believed. There is a softness to the world's foundation, a subtlety that allows for slips and slants, for particles to arrive where they shouldn't, and for people to become who they weren't supposed to be. In your quietest moments, perhaps you felt it, that you are more than your body, that your edges blur, that there is something inside you that stretches, not physically, but potentially, something that touches the improbable, even just for a heartbeat. And this isn't just poetry. Quantum tunneling is described by equations, the Schrödinger equation, the mathematics of probability density. It tells us that if a particle has a wave function that doesn't collapse at a barrier's edge, there is always some non-zero chance it will appear on the other side. That chance may be minuscule, a ghost of a ghost, but it is never zero. The universe, it seems, leaves the door slightly ajar. And maybe that's all you need. Not an open door, but one that might open even just slightly. Maybe the parts of you that feel stuck, that feel caged, only need the quiet whisper, there is another side, and you might just find yourself there. Think of the sun again. Every second it shines because of tunneling. It casts light across planets, over oceans, through windows, into your room, onto your skin. It touches your face while you read this, while you rest, while you dream. That light comes from particles that dared to pass through barriers. So do you, the electrons in your body, the protons in your blood, the synapses in your thoughts. They all carry the echo of that same story. The improbable made real. The flicker that became a fire, even decay. The soft, gradual fading of radioactive atoms is a form of tunneling. An alpha particle, trapped within a nucleus, finally slips through a barrier and leaves. It is not pushed. It simply appears outside. The nucleus changes. The atom becomes something new. You, too, change. You, too, decay and become. We are not made of certainty. We are not engines of cause and effect. We are oceans of potential, collapsed briefly into form. So rest with that thought. Rest in the quiet motion beneath your skin, where barriers are not as solid as they seem. Rest in the strange truth that what makes you you is not only flesh and thought, but also 1,000 tiny ghosts of energy slipping through the impossible. Let it soften you, let it unsettle you, let it sing you into sleep, and as your mind floats gently, one last idea lingers. If particles can tunnel through time and walls, then what else might move where it shouldn't? What are the connections between minds, between hearts, between stars, wait quietly beyond the walls we have yet to see? Imagine, then, a thought, not just the product of brain chemistry, but the outcome of delicate, impossible-seeming events. Electrons slipping through potential walls, protons shifting between positions in molecular mazes, ions sneaking across narrow channels that classical science said were closed. Your every idea, this very one, rides on quantum events you do not control and can hardly predict. That you are thinking right now means tunneling has occurred somewhere deep in the shadowed circuitry of your brain. That your heart continues its rhythm means ions have crossed thresholds they shouldn't have been able to. That you see, smell, and move means particles have dared to disobey the ordinary and succeeded. In this way, your body is a quiet cathedral of defiance. There's grace in that. You, resting now, are not still because nothing moves, but because everything moves. In harmony, beneath your stillness, chaos flickers, possibility pulses, atoms vibrate, particles wander, and some of them, those that matter most, tunnel. Perhaps that's what the world is built on, not certainty, but the constant willingness to try, again and again, for the impossible. And so we return to the sun, that fierce, burning orb in the sky, ancient and relentless. It is not just a sphere of fire, it is a temple of tunnels. Without tunneling, the pressure at the sun's core wouldn't be enough to ignite fusion. The energy wouldn't escape. Light would never arrive here. Plants wouldn't grow. Life wouldn't evolve. You wouldn't be reading this. You are the result of quantum defiance, and not just the sun. Inside Earth, deep beneath your feet, radioactive elements decay through tunneling, slowly releasing the heat that drives tectonic plates and volcanic breath. Your planet, too, is powered by this ghostly mechanism. a warm and shifting body built on the quiet movement of invisible messengers. But what does it mean, truly, to carry this inside you? It means you are not only part of the universe, you are a mirror of it. You do not merely observe quantum behavior in distant stars or sterile labs. You embody it. Every cell is a gateway. Every moment is an experiment. You are both the scientist and the phenomenon. There's humility in that, but also wonder. In the silent depths of your mitochondria, the smallest decisions are made by chance, yet coordinated with such elegance that you rise each day as though your form were inevitable. It wasn't. You are a thread of probabilities stitched into a coherent shape, a pattern that might not have existed, and yet, miraculously, does. You. Let that word echo softly for a moment. You are made of barriers breached and thresholds crossed, of improbable bridges built across molecular voids, of flickers that became form, and forms that hold dreams. And if your body tunnels, then perhaps your story does too. What of intuition, those sudden, quiet leaps in your mind? What of memory, appearing like a flash in the dark? What of love, unexplainable and vast? What if these, too, were a kind of tunneling, not through matter, but through meaning? Quantum mechanics tells us that under the right conditions, particles may connect, vanish, or pass through without touch. Might we do the same in ways we don't yet understand? When you feel someone across a great distance, when you dream of something before it arrives, is it mere illusion? Or is your quantum self brushing against a reality you cannot yet name? We do not know. But what we do know is this: there is always more than meets the eye. The walls of the world are thinner than they appear in a lab. Physicists trap atoms in potential wells, tiny pits where a particle should stay, logically, like a marble in a bowl. But sometimes the atom simply appears outside the bowl without climbing or breaking through. It wasn't fast enough to jump. It didn't have the energy to escape. And yet it escaped. This too is you. When life places you in a well, when you are held by rules or limits, there may still be a way through. Not with effort, not by force, but by being what you already are. A quantum being, born to flicker and flow. What looks like escape may, in fact, be emergence. What feels like failure may simply be the pause before reappearance. Perhaps this is how healing works, or growth, not through sudden revolution, but through small, unseeable slips into a new space of being. And now, let your thoughts float forward again, back to the idea of connection. If tunneling lets one particle pass silently through a wall, then the next chapter asks a stranger question. What if two particles, separated by oceans of space, can still know each other? What if they respond together as though distance meant nothing? This is the mystery of entanglement, a kind of quantum whisper across the void. So breathe in now, softly, let go of the solid for a moment. Feel the ghost of movement beneath your ribs, the gentle flicker of possibility within your bones. Let yourself be both still and shifting, because within you, tiny things are slipping through impossible spaces, and beyond you, stranger connections still await. The stars still shine in your mind from the last chapter. You remember how particles can tunnel through barriers they should never cross. That idea lingers, echoing with strangeness. But now, something even more astonishing waits just ahead. Not just about matter, but about time itself. You find yourself inside a vast, still chamber, quiet as a breath held forever. There is no ticking of clocks here, no motion of shadows across the floor. only the sensation of waiting, of time being folded in upon itself, like a soft blanket drawn tight. This is not the kind of time you've always known. This is something deeper, something gentler, something that doesn't always obey the rules. In the realm of quantum mechanics, time is not a constant drumbeat. It stutters, slows, leaps, hesitates. And at times when no one is watching too closely, it slips through cracks in reality, just like particles do. Imagine a quantum particle poised before a barrier. It doesn't climb over. It doesn't go around. It tunnels through. But during that forbidden journey, a strange question arises. How long does it take to tunnel? You might expect a simple answer. A few nanoseconds, perhaps. A whisper of measurable delay. But quantum theory hesitates. Some interpretations say it takes no time at all. Others claim the particle isn't really there inside the barrier. Still, others suggest the particle does spend time tunneling, but in a time that is complex, part real, part imaginary, like a dream halfway remembered. You walk through this paradox slowly, step by step, as if tracing the outline of something invisible. Time, it turns out, is not a fixed thread running through everything. It behaves differently depending on how you observe it. And when you stop observing it, it may curl and flow like mist. This is the heart of what physicists call the Hartmann effect. In some cases, as barriers grow wider, tunneling particles still seem to emerge almost instantly on the other side. It's as if time itself took a shortcut, a loophole in the normal sequence of cause and effect. The particle appears to have moved faster than light, but it hasn't. It's the clock that plays the trick. You sit by a stream now, its water, shimmering under a silver blue sky. Every ripple is like a moment. Some are short, others long. Some rush forward, others eddy in place. You dip your hand in, and the water resists, then yields, then seems to part without touching you at all. Could time be like this, fluid, ever-changing, ungraspable? There's a comfort in not knowing for certain. There's peace in the idea that time isn't a chain that binds you, but a dance that surrounds you. When you are deeply asleep, time slips. Minutes stretch like hours, or vanish like dust. In dreams, you might relive an entire life in the space of a single heartbeat. This isn't so far from what happens at the quantum level. Some experiments show that entangled particles can seem to coordinate their behavior instantly across vast distances. Others suggest that the outcome of a measurement may ripple backward, subtly influencing what came before. It's as if time, under quantum rules, can look both ways. You gaze now into a corridor lined with mirrors. In each reflection, you see yourself, slightly altered, slightly delayed. One raises a hand before the other. One lags behind. You realize, perhaps all moments are like this, a hall of echoes. The present is just a slice of a wider tapestry, stitched with memories and possibilities. In the quantum realm, temporal non-locality suggests that events can be connected, not just across space, but across time. This doesn't mean you can rewrite the past, but it does hint that time may not be the strict one-way street we once imagined. The universe, it seems, may remember more than we expect. Now picture this: a neutron in a crystal lattice. It bounces back and forth, caged by atomic forces. But every so often, it vanishes only to reappear somewhere else in the lattice, seemingly without crossing the space between. In its place, only a ripple of possibility remains. Was it ever there? Or had it always been on both sides, merely waiting to be observed? You feel a soft pull in your chest. This idea that presence doesn't require passage. that change doesn't always need movement, is both unsettling and beautiful. It opens a door in your mind, a quantum loophole in time. Inside a quantum clock, time isn't measured by hands or gears, but by the evolution of a particle's state. These quantum clocks can reveal astonishing truths that sometimes, the longer you wait for something to happen, the less likely it is to occur. This is the quantum Zeno effect, named after the ancient philosopher who imagined an arrow frozen in flight. If you observe a particle constantly, it may never decay. It may never move. It may remain suspended, held in the gaze of your attention. In a strange way, you become part of its timeline. The watcher shapes the watched. You close your eyes, letting this settle over you like twilight. Time, in the quantum sense, is not always forward. It is not always singular. It is not always ours. The more closely you look, the more elusive it becomes, not unlike love, or memory, or the way a dream fades when you try to write it down. And yet, the universe unfolds, patiently, quietly, at its own pace. Some processes speed through invisible tunnels. Others linger in possibility, unchosen paths still waiting to become real. In all of it, time breathes, not ticking, but pulsing. You imagine a world where time is soft, where the future whispers to the past, where cause and effect dance together rather than follow in line. You imagine how such a world might feel not chaotic, but curved, not broken, but flexible. And somewhere in that bend, you find hope. The laws of physics don't deny this. They allow for equations to run both forward and backward. Only our perspective, the entropy, the arrow, the memory tells us that time moves one way. But what if our experience is just one layer? Beneath it, a deeper rhythm plays a music of mirrored moments, echoing both ways. You're walking again. The corridor of mirrors has faded into a grove of tall, slow-moving trees. The air is still. Somewhere nearby, a quantum clock ticks with no hands. You wonder how long you've been here. Minutes, hours, a fraction of forever. Time smiles, saying, "Nothing you remember." Particles tunnel through barriers. But maybe, just maybe, time does, too. Maybe it slips between what was and what might be, arriving quietly on the other side. Maybe you've felt it in déjà vu, in dreams, in the sudden sense that something has already happened, though it hasn't yet. In those moments, perhaps, you touch the edge of quantum time. You lean into its curve. You breathe its uncertainty. And as you do, a soft question forms in the stillness. What if memory, too, is a kind of time travel? What if the mind itself is a traveler not just through space, but across the shimmering layers of its own past and possible future? You pause, lingering on this thought like a footstep not yet taken. The mind, like time, has its own loopholes, and perhaps you're already passing through one. But what is a loophole, truly? A flaw in a law, a silent passage missed by the grand design. In physics, it isn't always a mistake. Sometimes, it's an invitation, a sign that the rules may be more nuanced than we first believed. You now stand before a shimmering archway. There's no sign above it, no inscription, just the quiet feeling that something different happens beyond. You step through, and time does not follow in its usual way. Here, in this pocket of possibility, you meet the delayed choice. Strange proposal by John Wheeler. Imagine a particle, light itself, entering a device that can either detect it as a wave or as a particle. But the decision of how it will be measured is made after it has already entered the system. Stranger still, the choice seems to affect what the particle was before the measurement. It's like choosing, retroactively, whether a raindrop was a wave or a bead of light after it's already fallen. Somehow, reality accommodates both options until you ask the question. Time flexes to meet your curiosity. In these moments, the past is not fixed. It is pliable, responsive, a canvas half-painted, waiting for your brush. This is not the same as rewriting events, but it is the startling suggestion that until something is observed, its history is not fully real. You feel that now in your chest, the trembling idea that the universe might be sculpted not only by what has been, but by what could be, that the future might reach back not to change, but to clarify, to shape the fog of what we call the past. And this makes you wonder about yourself. Your memories, are they recordings, solid, stored away? Or are they reconstructions, each act of remembering subtly changing what is remembered? A breeze rustles the leaves overhead. In the quantum world, this question has no single answer. Particles can entangle across time. One experiment, performed on entangled photons, showed that changing the condition of one photon seemed to instantaneously alter its partner even when the events were not simultaneous. Time, again, had no clear edge. What, then, is a moment? You sit quietly and ask yourself, perhaps a moment is not a point on a line, but a window, a breath, a little opening in the weave of being, and through it, you move not just forward, but inward. Memory travels this way, too, not like an arrow, but like a tide dot in your dreams. Moments are not counted, they are felt. They stretch and fold. You leap between scenes, merge people into one another, revisit the same emotion in 1,000 different guises. In your waking life, too, time sometimes blurs during meditation, or sorrow, or love. These, perhaps, are the human equivalents of tunneling. When your conscious mind slips the barrier of the everyday and moves somewhere it shouldn't be able to go, back to a childhood scent, forward to an imagined embrace, sideways to a memory that never quite happened but always felt true. The universe doesn't protest, it seems to allow these movements. It seems even to be built for them. There are physicists today, like Carlo Rovello, propose that time itself may not be fundamental. That time is not a universal feature of reality, but a convenience that emerges from relationships between things. That time, as we know it, is a story we tell to make sense of change. This is not a failure of science. It is its deepening, just as Newton gave way to Einstein, and Einstein opened the door to quantum strangeness. We too are being invited into a subtler understanding. You picture the universe not as a clock, but as a conversation. Every particle answering the question asked by its neighbor. Every motion, every vibration, every shift in energy not bound to a timeline, but to a dialogue, a dance dot, and in this dance, some steps happen out of sequence, some are skipped, some repeat. Time becomes music, sometimes in rhythm, sometimes syncopated, and occasionally, in the deepest silence, you hear the harmony behind it all. This doesn't mean cause and effect vanish, but it does suggest they are not as rigid as once believed. They shimmer, they weave, they shimmer again. You walk now through a quiet observatory, telescopes pointed not at stars, but at atomic clocks. These clocks don't tick, they hum. They measure time with transitions between energy levels. Their rhythm is based on the very nature of atoms. They are precise, so than any mechanical clock. Yet even they are affected by gravity, by speed, by context. Einstein's relativity reminds us time is relative. It bends under the weight of planets. It stretches when you move faster. Clocks on satellites run differently than clocks on Earth. Our very GPS systems must account for this curvature of time, or our locations would be wrong. So, even in our modern world, we live with bent time. We build our lives around it. We adapt to its flexibility without even realizing. And here, within these insights, a deeper truth settles over you. Time is not a ruler, but a relationship. You have always felt this. When you wait, time grows heavy. When you love, it flies. When you grieve, it slows. Your perception, your heartbeat, your attention, your memory braids itself into the weave of time. And in doing so, it becomes part of the fabric itself. The particle tunnels. The clock stutters. The observer wonders. And in that wondering, something sacred stirs. A gentle quiet enters you now. A hush deeper than sleep. You do not need all the answers. You only need the questions, the ones that soften your breath, the ones that light the stars in your mind. You return to the archway. You look back, you look forward. Both are the same, and you walk on, carrying the echo of bent time in your step. For if time can tunnel and bend and loop, then memory too must follow paths not drawn. Perhaps the next journey lies not in matter or motion, but in the delicate architecture of remembering. In how the mind rewrites its past with every breath. The world does not always unfold in straight lines. Sometimes it wavers, like the thin glimmer of a sunbeam passing through morning mist, not committing to the path ahead, but dancing softly, undecided. Tonight, you drift with that shimmer. You do not walk a road. You float in the space between roads. In the quantum world, this space is not empty. It hums, gently. It is a quiet, invisible orchestra of what could be unplayed notes waiting for a hand to press the keys. Every electron, every photon, every dancing particle, before choosing where to land, passes through a moment of in-betweenness, a pause. This pause is not hesitation, it is freedom. You close your eyes and imagine yourself as one of those particles. There is a fork in your journey, but no pressure to choose. For now, you hover. Both paths exist, suspended. You feel neither fear nor urgency, only stillness. You are inside the possibility in quantum mechanics. This pause is known by many names: superposition, uncertainty, the wave function. But names do not matter here. What matters is how it feels. A soft unfolding, a breath held between inhale and exhale. Think of a coin, flipped but not yet caught. For the tiniest instant, it is both heads and tails. For that moment, the universe waits. You are that moment. Not the coin, not the outcome, just the space between. Physicists call this the wave-like nature of matter. Before we observe it, a particle exists as a smear of probabilities. Not one location, but all possible locations. Not one path, but a spread of many. And yet, when we finally measure it, it chooses. The wave collapses. A single outcome emerges. You are learning to rest in the wave. Let your thoughts drift to the famous double-slit experiment. You've heard of it before. Particles sent through two narrow slits, arriving on a screen. When not watched, they behave like waves, creating interference. Patterns of light and dark, ripples across space. But when observed, they behave like particles, as if they've made up their minds. Observation collapses the dance. It's as if reality doesn't commit until someone is looking, like a dream that vanishes when you wake, or a path in the forest that only forms when you step into it. But what happens in between, when no one is watching, when no decision has been made? That is where you are now. You float, not in indecision, but in openness. You drift between infinite tomorrows, feeling the peace that comes not from knowing, but from accepting the unknown. Your breath becomes slower. Your mind becomes softer. Like the wave, you are free. In the quantum field, this pause is described by the wave function, a mathematical whisper of what might be. It's not reality as it is, but reality as it could become. A pattern of possibilities, unclassed. It's hard to hold on to this space. We are creatures who crave answers, decisions, firm ground. But the universe does not always offer that. Sometimes it gives us poetry instead, a physics of maybe, a science of perhaps. The space between possibilities is not a void. It is a garden. Inside it bloom every future that could grow, if only we watered it with observation. But here, in the moment before choosing, the garden is wild, untamed. You wander through it now, feeling the soft leaves of uncertainty brush against your skin. What will you choose? Not yet. You're not there. You're still becoming. A cat once lay at the heart of a quantum thought, half live, half not, until someone looked. Schrodinger's paradox, yes, but also a lullaby of quantum patience. The cat rests in possibility. So do you, in our larger world, the classical world. We often forget this place exists. We expect reality to be firm, fixed, final. But quantum physics reminds us, before every reality is a pause, before every certainty a maybe. This is not weakness, it is wisdom. Like a painter staring at a blank canvas, brush held mid-air, you are not lost. You are in creation. Even time itself becomes gentle here. Past and future do not press you. The moment is thick with presence, as if the future is holding its breath. And you, too, inhale slowly, not rushing to exhale. You let possibilities settle in your chest like dust in a sunbeam. This moment, this space, is not just in science. It lives in your life. Think of all the choices you've ever made, the crossroads, the what-ifs, the alternate selves you left behind. They still shimmer. Behind the veil, they are part of you, even if unrealized. The version of you who said yes, who said no, who turned left instead of right, each a faint echo in the probability cloud. You are not only who you are who you could have been, and in some way that is comforting, because it means you are more than your choices. You are the pause that holds them all. You are not just the story told, you are also the silence before the words. In quantum mechanics, this silence is sacred. Some physicists believe consciousness plays a role, that the very act of awareness collapses the wave. Others disagree, but for you, lying still in your bed, it doesn't matter. What matters is the feeling, the quiet intimacy between you and the universe, as if it's waiting with you, listening. You begin to sense that this space between possibilities is not empty. It is where wonder lives. It is where art is born, where love begins, where questions rise like dawn. In this gentle state, you don't need to know what's next. You trust that when the time comes, the wave will collapse, the path will appear. Until then, you rest, you wait, and the waiting is beautiful. Sometimes, the most profound part of a journey is the pause before the step. Your breath is the universe. Inhaling possibility, your heartbeat is time. Choosing not yet, you lie in the shimmering hush, in the meadow of maybes, surrounded by the music of the unchosen. You belong here. You are not lost. You are simply not decided. Let your thoughts settle into that spacious unknown. Feel the vastness between yes and no, between now and then. It stretches like the sky, not asking for answers, only attention. Even your dreams begin from this place, that gentle flicker behind closed eyes, where images form without instruction. That too is the wave reaching into your inner world, whispering stories that haven't yet become real. You are learning to trust this silence, to love the lull, to stop searching for immediate outcomes, and instead to float in the river of becoming. The space between possibilities is not limbo, it is sacred ground. It is the pause before music, the moment the bow touches the string, but has not yet sung. It is where life rehearses its next step, softly, in secret. And as your thoughts drift, as your breath deepens, you begin to wonder, not with urgency, but with warmth, if the universe holds such peace in the pause. What dances might be hidden in the spaces between time itself. You breathe gently now, suspended in this realm of gentle unknowns. And your body begins to understand what your thoughts have long whispered. The universe is not in a hurry. Even particles, in their smallest, fastest journeys, pause. They hum, in quiet in-betweens, where the future is not yet fixed. Imagine a raindrop falling through clouds. It doesn't know which leaf it will land on. The wind may carry it. A bird's wing might ripple the air and shift its descent. But during its fall, it simply is suspended in movement, open to destination, but not needing to control it. You are that raindrop. In this quantum lull, where all paths are still possible, there is no judgment, no success, no failure. There is only emergence, becoming. Scientists describe particles as probability amplitudes, mathematical shapes that represent what could be, not what is. A particle does not move from point A to B in a neat arc. It flows through a sea of possibility, like a melody played softly before it's heard. The path is not chosen by force, but by quiet coherence, by alignment, by the subtle dance of context and relation. And so, too, do you move, not as a fixed being, but as a becoming wave. Perhaps your life isn't made of decisions and outcomes. Perhaps it is made of the space in between them, the feeling of being on the verge, that quiet readiness to unfold, like a flower that hasn't yet bloomed, but already holds its color. The quantum field is not just a place of uncertainty, it is also a place of wholeness. All options, all variations, are contained within the wave. To collapse into one is to let go of the rest, but while in superposition, you are still everything. You are still full. This fullness hums within you now. You realize not choosing is not failure. It is a state of sacred waiting, a moment when the world is still listening. There is dignity in this pause. There is grace in the not yet. Even the atoms in your body hold this rhythm, the pauses between transitions, the flickers between energy levels. Electrons leap not by moving smoothly, but by disappearing from one state and reappearing in another. In between, there is nothing visible, just space. A mystery. The ancient mystics spoke of the void, the fertile emptiness from which form arises. They did not fear it, they bowed to it. And now, science bows too, not with incense, but with equations. Still, the reverence is the same. You drift further, deeper into this awareness. Time slows. It bends softly, like sunlight through water. You are in no rush. You are not behind. You are not late in this gentle field of potentials. You let go of the need to be certain. You let go of the pressure to define. You let go of the story that says you must always know. Instead, you choose to float, to listen, to be. The space between possibilities becomes your teacher. It shows you that life is not a straight line, but a shimmering web. That outcomes are not destinations, but whispers, gently drawn from the tapestry of maybe. Here, imagination and physics hold hands. Your mind becomes a soft cradle where thoughts are born, not to be solved, but to be felt. A particle dances across the page of your mind, and you smile, not because you understand, but because you sense its beauty. The uncertainty principle, first introduced by Heisenberg, does not mean chaos. It means intimacy. It means the more closely you know one aspect of a particle, say its position, the less precisely you can know another, like its momentum. The universe offers itself slowly, not all at once. And perhaps you too can. Offer yourself in pieces, not with perfect clarity, but with soft mystery. You inhale that idea. Let it rest inside you. Uncertainty is not the absence of meaning. It is the birthplace of meaning. And now, as you lie in the hush of possibility, you begin to wonder what else lives in this in-between. What else takes form not in the edges, but in the center, in the part of the story that's still unfolding. Dreams, too, rise from this place. Ideas, waiting in the wings of your mind, stretch slowly toward consciousness. They aren't forced, they aren't captured. They emerge, like waves gently breaking on the shore. The most beautiful things in life often begin this way, not as facts, but as feelings. Not as answers, but as questions. You lie on your side, and the blanket of the universe settles softly around you. It does not press, it does not bind, it simply is draping itself over your breath, your skin, your quiet thoughts. Beneath it, you feel the warmth of paradox, a mystery not to solve, but to rest inside. Somewhere between wakefulness and sleep, between certainty and cloud, you feel the contours of a question that doesn't need an answer. Out there, in the trembling hush of space, everything shivers. With maybe, particles no longer walk in straight lines, nor rest in known places. They swirl through fields of probability, phasing in and out of presence like the tide. One moment here, one moment gone, but never lost. You have seen this dance before. Electrons orbiting nowhere, photons choosing paths only after you watch. Them, the cosmos hums with indecision, yet this uncertainty is not chaos. It is possibility. It is freedom. You remember the double-slit experiment. Perhaps a beam of light, particles of it sent toward to tiny openings. If you peek, it behaves like small stones. Each lands where expected. But if you do not interfere, if you let it go unmeasured, the beam becomes waves. It ripples. It interferes with itself. And on the far screen, a delicate pattern forms, as though each particle walked every path at once, through both slits, leaving behind the ghost of its infinite selves. In this moment before sleep, you are like that particle, a being of overlapping paths. All the versions of you, past and future, kind and cruel, brave and afraid, held within a shimmering mist of possibility. You do not collapse into one. You expand into many. The world around you becomes gentle in its contradictions. Cats, both alive and not, particles tunneled through walls, time bending backwards just to remind you that forward is not the only direction. You do not have to understand it to be held by it. You are allowed to float, to not decide, to simply be a question mark in the shape of a breath. You drift deeper, imagine, two entangled particles, born together, spun together, their fates woven like vines. You place one in your palm and send the other to the edge of the galaxy. Still, when you nudge one, the other knows, instantly. No message sent, no time passed, as if distance, that old reliable measure, is not so real after all. You wonder, are you entangled with someone, some version of yourself, some part of the cosmos whispering across the distance of dreams? You listen, and in the stillness a strange comfort comes, that in this universe of shifting truths and undetermined states, connection might be more certain than form, that the thread tying particle to particle, self to self, is not made of atoms or time, but something deeper, something woven through the structure of mystery itself. The blanket tucks tighter, the room quiets now, your thoughts turn to tunneling, a particle sitting behind a barrier without the energy to climb over it, and yet it appears on the other side, as though the universe whispered, yes, even here, even this is allowed. You wonder if your own life moves like that sometimes, not forward by force, but by a quiet allowance, a shift not seen, only felt. You imagine a barrier in your mind, something thick and immovable, fear perhaps, or the unknown, and then, like the particle, you pass through, not with effort, not with explanation, just through. Not all boundaries are real, not all endings are final. A yawn trembles from your chest. The night continues to stretch, wide and unmeasured. Time, now, becomes syrup, slow and sweet. It pulls around your limbs, softens your heartbeat, invites you inward. Each second drips like honey, each moment unfolding not in seconds but in silences between thoughts. In this syrupy time, your body dissolves into waveforms. You are no longer arms and legs and name. You are probability, a smudge across a canvas of time, and oddly, this is peace. There is no pressure to define yourself, only to exist in layers, in potential. Perhaps you have always existed this way, a ripple in the great sea of being. The illusion was in believing you were fixed. Now, freed from form, you drift towards superposition. You are here and there, asleep and not, dreaming and listening. The boundaries between are not solid walls, but misted membranes. Everything you are touches, everything you could be. You think of the universe again, not as a collection of stars, but as a single vibrating field, a breath, and in that breath you were held. Not watched, not judged, simply held. The cosmos does not demand clarity from you. It does not ask you to decide which slit you passed through, which identity you wear, which outcome is yours. It only holds your waveform in the dark, letting you shimmer. You turn your head on the pillow. Outside, the wind taps the window with a sound like fading footsteps. Maybe a memory, maybe a possibility passing by. In the quantum world, sound is not just vibration, it's a story told by the movement of uncertainty. Even silence is full of information, you'll realize, especially silence, so you listen. To the hush between stars, to the still breath of atoms, to the story that needs no words, the one the universe tells, when it lets its rules soften, not broken, only loosened, bent into lullaby. And the story is this, that you are part of a paradox, a being who observes and is observed, who exists by being witnessed, and yet disappears when defined too sharply. You are a question the universe keeps asking itself in infinite variations, and perhaps that's why you feel so at home in this. In between, not fully here, not fully gone. You're not supposed to choose. You're supposed to rest, to let the paradox rock you like a cradle. You are the wave and the particle, the yes and the maybe, the breath and the space between dot. And as your mind fades into the warmth of the blanket, your very presence becomes an experiment unanswered, an equation incomplete, a story still being written. But you are not anxious for the ending. You are content in the middle, the part where all is soft, where all is waiting, where every outcome still glows faintly, where you, like the universe, are still unfolding. And as your thoughts dissolve into the ether of rest, one question curls quietly around your last conscious breath. If dreams are waveforms too, what shapes do they collapse into when we wake? You wonder this gently, without demanding an answer. The question drifts alongside you, neither heavy nor sharp, but feathered with curiosity. It stays with you like the last glimmer of a shooting star, trailing across the edges of your mind. Perhaps your dreams are more than echoes of memory. Perhaps they are quantum fields folding in and out of each other, impressions from parallel selves brushing against the veil. Each dream a soft collapse, each waking a wave reborn. You imagine yourself in a sleep laboratory, sensors gently placed on your scalp. Somewhere in the darkness, a screen flickers with the rhythm of your brain, not just electrical pulses, but probability pulses. Your neurons fire not because they must, but because they might. Each synapse is a quantum gate, uncertain until it leaps, and still you rest. This is not the rest of stillness. It is the rest of oscillation. The kind of peace that comes not from being motionless, but from being in perfect rhythm with the sway of the cosmos. You are no longer fighting the mystery. You are breathing with it. Somewhere nearby your heart beats, but it is not alone. All around you, the night itself has a heartbeat in the rustle of leaves, in the hum of distant traffic, in the pulse of starlight that took millions of years to arrive at your window. You close your eyes to listen more deeply. There is something ancient and sacred about this kind of listening, not to voices, but to patterns, to the silence between moments that still carries meaning. You think of the quantum vacuum, that strange space that is not empty. Even in the absence of matter, particles blink in and out of existence. Virtual pairs, opposites born and annihilated in the tiniest flickers of time. The universe does not tolerate pure nothingness. Even the void hums with potential, and so does your sleep. Even now, as your breath slows and your limbs fall heavy, your mind remains porous, not busy, not grasping, but wide and soft like a net made of mist. Ideas float by unannounced. A child's laugh, a blue planet, a field of grass that only exists in one dimension. You do not hold them. You let them come and go somewhere in your body. A molecule vibrates. That vibration, tiny, chaotic, but real, may shift the balance of a thought, or a memory, or a decision you'll make weeks from now. Every atom, you realize, is a potential pivot, a doorway. The butterfly effect whispered through electrons. Now your body becomes lighter. Not weightless, but buoyant, like something gently suspended in a fluid. Maybe it's the dark matter you float in, or maybe it's the quantum foam, that infinitesimal froth at the fabric of space-time, writhing with energy. You are no longer bound by the macroscopic. You are part of the hidden, scaffolding the architecture of wonder. From within this dreamlike awareness, time begins to curl. You remember that time, too, is a quantum field, not a river, but a sea, and you are not merely carried forward. You drift in spirals and tides. You remember something from tomorrow. You forget something from yesterday. It all feels ... permissible. You are not wrong. Time can bend under gravity. It can tangle under measurement. You think again of particles entangled, communicating faster than light, as though information laughs at the rules of distance. The clock is not your master. Here in this world of superposition, you realize, even truth can be layered. One version of you still walks the path you almost chose. One version turns left, one version stays home, one version reads this sentence, while another only dreams of it. All versions whisper through the folds of quantum space, brushing past each other like gentle wings. You are not fragmented. You are symphonic. You are the music of many realities, played simultaneously and still. It is quiet, quiet enough that you begin to feel the contours of something beneath the quantum. A stillness untouched even by probability. Not a particle, not a wave, but a pause so profound it feels eternal. Perhaps this is what the mystics meant when they spoke of the void. Not nothing, but everything before form, that the formless possibility. And this is where your awareness comes. To rest, not asleep, not awake. Balanced like a spinning top on the tip of uncertainty. You do not need to lean toward meaning. You do not need to reach for fact. Here, in the cradle of paradox, you are allowed to dissolve, to become waveform. To become hush. You shift beneath your blanket, not out of discomfort, but as a way of acknowledging this moment. This perfect uncertainty. The paradox of being, of knowing, of sleeping beside a universe that refuses to be pinned down. And in this gentle surrender, you feel something unexpected: safety. Not from answers, but from questions that go on forever. A cosmic lullaby sung in particles and probabilities, assuring you that unknowing is not a flaw, it is a feature. It is the way the universe breathes. You are not alone in this. The stars above you hold their own secrets. Each one a furnace of fusion, yes, but also a vault of questions. How do they know when to collapse? What whispers into their gravity well? When they burst into supernova, do they too dream of what comes next? You will never know for certain, and that is okay. Mystery does not beg for closure. It begs only for presence. And here you are, fully present in the act of resting within the great unknown. Your breath slows further. If someone were to observe you now, they might see a sleeping body, still serene, safe. But inside you are moving, leaping between probabilities, tunneling through your own subconscious, entangling with versions of yourself not yet realized. Perhaps this is what it means to dream scientifically, to surrender to a world that doesn't promise definition, but offers beauty, endlessly unfolding. And as you begin to pass through the veil of full sleep, a final thought drifts in, like moonlight across water, that the universe, in all its strangeness and contradiction, is not trying to trick you. It is inviting you, not to figure it out, but to feel it, to touch the pulse of it with your own shifting self, to know that you too are quantum, fragile, layered, shimmering between one state and another. And so you drift into probability, into paradox, into peace. The silence deepens, the waveform stretches, and far ahead, in the distance of unformed thought, another question shimmers, waiting patiently to rise. What else might the universe be when no one is looking?